things we learned how to handle them. Other one more important we learned about stop propagation, right, and prevent default. These are important while working with events, right? And event arguments also play the major role. So in the general events, we have some more elements like element state events. In element state events, we discussed about on change, on blur, on focus. All these comes under element change events. So few examples I showed you on these events. We have other events like clipboard events. You have another category. So we have like clipboard events. Clipboard events, you have options like on cut, like on copy, and on paste. These comes under clipboard events. So clipboard is nothing but the temporary memory for your operating system. So what is the meaning of the commands cut and copy? The meaning of the command cut is remove the selection and put it on clipboard. So clipboard is the memory of your operating system where the content that you cut and copy are kept. You can individually handle that also. In your computer, you will have a clipboard settings. We can go into this clipboard settings and you can manage what you copied, what you cut, everything you can manage from here. Clipboard is the memory allocated for your operating system where the contents that you cut and copy are present. What is the meaning of paste? It inserts the content that is present on clipboard. The purpose of paste is to insert the content that is present on clipboard. So these are required. These days, very much we use these type of options. For example, in many requirements in interviews, they ask these type of requirements. React project. Yeah. So in many requirements, what is the question they ask here is, for example, they are giving some options like one of the frequently asked question in interviews is how to disable paste in any element. That's one common question. So, or how to disable copy and cut from element. These are common things actually. How do we disable paste in any element? How to disable cut and copy from any element? These are general questions actually, because you are designing a form, and when you are designing a form, you might have observed, suppose they asked here some account number. When they are asking account number, and you entered some account number, and they ask here, so the account number you entered, and they ask to confirm that account number, and this confirmation of account number, so this is confirm account number. This confirmation of account number, you cannot copy and paste this here. Again, you have to type only. That means you select what you typed earlier, you copy it and try to paste in this. It will not allow. It is mandatory to re-enter only. That means this text box is not allowing to paste. How? How you can disable any particular functionality? For text box, you cannot use read only or disabled. Text box have a attribute called disabled read only. If you disable read only, then you cannot type anything. Then how you will disable pasting any content? User can type, but user cannot paste. In general JavaScript, you have learned that any event you can disable. So any event you can disable by returning false. If an event returns false, then it is disabled. It will not allow to perform any functionality. So that is a general JavaScript concept. You know this you can use even for disabling selection. Disabling selection, we can do the same. That means user cannot select, user cannot copy. So any functionality we can do returning false. Actually, what we have to do here, it is at DOM level we need to operate actually. So I will show here. At a DOM level, we need to manage. For example, here in this, I am creating a list and a term. Suppose account number, input type is text, and another term confirm number. So we have another input type text. Just we given some heading like verify account. Just roughly we given this option. Now important is here you are typing some number you are typing. You copy this one, and when you copied, actually what happens, sometimes we are not sure whether it is copied. Then we will go to another location and try to paste. Then it is not pasting. That means there may be two reasons. One, it may disable pasting, or two, it's not copied. How do you confirm it is copied? How do you confirm it is copied? If it is copied, we will show some status that copied. That's what generally you see on several applications, because people who are using mobile smart devices and all, always confusion is they think they copied, but when they go and paste, it's not pasting. So two reasons. One is either copied or not first. If you give a confirmation that it is copied, that's good. That means they have a confirmation that it copied. But you are not allowing paste. So here you see now, actually, when you are dealing with this, I am simply writing a message here. I will give a simple option, data definition. Okay. Let's keep a function here. So constant status message, set status. So status and set status, just these two things we are giving. And use state, it's an empty string. So here what we are doing is status and set status. What we will do when it is copied here, we will use on copy. On copy, handle copy. And what we can do, write a function. So that is handle copy. And on this set status, so number copied. That's what we are giving. And on blur, handle blur. When blur is when it lose the focus. Handle blur. Set status is empty. We don't have any message to show. Okay, this is initially defined. Now you entered some account number and you selected this, you copied it through any medium, means Control C or right click. Control C copied, that means it should display copied. Copy, it's a function. Acha, we are not displaying message. We have to display the message here. Message is status message. Status. Okay. Now I am selecting here number copied. So just you type the number and copy the number, Control C, the number copied. And I clicked inside this confirm number. I want to paste. Now when I right click and try to paste, it allows to paste, but it should not allow. The second box should not allow to paste. So even it is copied, it should not allow to paste. So how do we disable such operation on this text box? Usually we use the event on paste. On paste, we will use a function. This function have to return a boolean false. It should return a false. This function have to return false. But there are so many points here. For example, you see now here. So here we have a number. We copied that number and we have here and we are pasting it. It's working. So it should not allow to paste. But actually in JavaScript, if any function return false, then it will not allow to perform the functionality. Now what is point here? This is returning a boolean value. So that means we are using a function. This function is returning false. So what is this return false? You see now here, I will number is pasted here, number is copied, and number you are pasting here, it's still working. Why it is still working? Because the concept is correct, there is no problem. Why it is still working? Because the clipboard operations are not related to virtual DOM. They are not related to virtual DOM. They are related to, so they are related to actual DOM. That means we need to disable the actual DOM functionalities. For example, see, this you are directly returning false. So, and you see the return false is unable to return a function. Means it is unable to return. Of course, it is returning a boolean. But this function is returning a boolean, and boolean false will disable actual. This is related to actual DOM. Then how the actual DOM can manage? Even you are writing a function here. What is the function? Handle paste, suppose. On handle paste, we are using return false. And you defined handle paste. Handle paste. Okay. And what handle paste is doing? Returning false. And observe now, here we are defining some number. We copied that number and trying to paste it is still alone. Because previously what you written, here also same. How you make this to disable the original paste of DOM? Because actually disabling a event is not virtually done. It is done on actual DOM. Then how do we do that? In JavaScript, how you disable the actual DOM event? You have to use a document object. Document on paste. On paste. It uses a function. This function, it will return false. That means this virtual DOM event should map to the actual DOM event, which will disable that particular event. Now, what is the point here is still so much is there here. Means, suppose you entered some number and you copied this number and you click here and paste. It's not working now. I am selecting paste. It's not working. That is the way how you have to disable any functionality, because disabling an event cannot be just satisfied with virtual DOM. You need to access the actual DOM, because window related several functionalities are not managed by directly virtual DOM events. You know, in JavaScript you have alert. Alert belongs to window. You have confirm. Confirm belongs to window. Prompt belongs to window. If you are dealing with window related events and you want to disable them through virtual events, then always you have to use the DOM events, not the normal events. You have to use the DOM events. What is the DOM event? Document on paste. On paste, it will use a function that will return false. You can disable any functionality. That means you selected Control C, copy working. But when I click here and Control V, paste not working. I am unable to paste. Selecting paste, it's not working. So that is very important. So you can, any event you can disable by returning false. So it requires the DOM methods, DOM events to invoke and return false. DOM events to invoke and return false. So syntactically, on paste, this will return false. Like document dot on select start. What is this on select start? On select start indicates disable the selection. So document dot on copy. So return false. Any event you can disable by using this method. Not only disabling, you can show some status which I showed you above, that copied, pasted, like that. So usually that is the concept here. Example is some mouse demo.jsx. That is the file I have, key demo. So in this, I'm having this one that is related to clipboard. These are clipboard related events. Element state events: on cut, on copy, on change. Sorry, on copy, on change, on blur, on focus. Next, you have, means what are the important events other than this we have to know is, you should know about form events. Form events. So what are the form events available? You know what are the form events available? On submit, on reset. These are form events. And where to apply them? To the form element, right? So the form events are defined for form element. They are they can be controlled only with generic elements. What are those generic elements? Submit button and reset button. Reset button. Only through them you can control. So the form events are defined for form element and they can be controlled only with generic elements. Generic elements like submit and reset. Why they are called generic? Because they have predefined functionality. So by default, they do some work. If you want any additional work to perform, then you can give that to using on submit and on reset. These we will see later when we are implementing by using any um, application like APIs, backend APIs, we will try to implement. Then you can understand how to manage. Because on submit is used for collecting the data from the form and submitting to the server. Server side, there will be some API which will collect your data and insert into the database. So that process you will see. But here the key point is that what happens now when you are using this submit button, because it is a generic element, it have default functionality. We have to disable the default functionality and provide only the functionality that we need. Then we have to use prevent default. So what is the default functionality it is having? Posting the data of form to server. That is the default functionality it is having. Even you don't write, it will do. Even you don't write the functionality, it will do. If form is designed for get request, then where the data will be submitted? If form is designed on get request, where it will be submitted? Query string. Data will be submitted in query string. On post, it is submitted on form body. You know the both things, right? You know how form submits. On get, it will submit in query string. On post, it will submit in form body. And if you don't want that submit and you want your own functionality, then you have to prevent default and configure the functionality. So usually when you are designing a form, let's say, so here I am just creating a form. Okay. This form element, we are creating the form element. And in this we have some username. And we have text box, input type text. And it is having a name, user name. Now we have a button, and button is a submit button. Even you don't write any functionality, what happens when you enter any name and click on submit? It can submit that. It is submitting as query string, because by default form method is get. If form method is post, then data will not be in query string. It will be in form body. That's the basic thing you know. Now we don't want this to happen. On get or post, we don't want form to submit to server. We want our own functionality to configure. Then how do we do? So we have to write on submit. On submit is the event that we use when form is submitted. And this submit event will fire up automatically when you click the submit button. And on that, we will write a function, submit click. In submit click, what should happen is it will point towards the function called submit click. On submit click, we will temporarily put some alert. We will put an alert form submitted. Like this, we are giving some alert. Now observe here, when we are entering the details. So it is doing two works: submit, form submitted, and it is doing its default functionality also. We should avoid this default functionality to perform. We don't want the default functionality. Then what you have to do? E, and through E, what we have to do? Prevent default. We have to set prevent default. Now what it is going to do? The default functionality of submitting in the URL as query string or in the form body, it will prevent that, and it will do only the work that you given. So that is important. So you entered some name and submit, form submitted, and the default functionality is not performed. Sometimes we want the default functionality to perform, and sometimes we don't want. In that case, we can manage by using this technique. Now here, so many points are there. Generally, I already told you that using HTML forms directly is a very big, lengthy process in React. We depend on third party. So by using third party forms, we create and design the forms so that we can make the form interactions easy. Otherwise, it's a lengthy process. Already you saw how to collect the data and manage the data from every element. Those third party forms, next point we are going to discuss about that. But this is related not to form, it is related to event. We have similarly submit event, another one reset. This is one example for that. Syntactically here, form have on submit, on resets, and usually these will work with the button type as submit and with the button type as reset. So we need to configure the functionality on submit and on reset. Here, so many challenges are there. So to test your maximum skills that you have in your web designing, so many questions are asked depending on how experience you keep in resume. The first question here is, so can we have multiple forms in a component? Is it possible to have more than one form in a component? You can have, there is no problem in that. You can have multiple forms in a component. So yes, we can have multiple forms in a component. Every form can have its own submit, reset like functionalities. There is no problem in that. Can we define a form within within the context of another form. So that means here the question is, we have a form. This is the parent. In that we have another form. This is child. This is child. Is it possible to have a form inside another form? It's not possible. It's not possible to have a form inside another form. So usually this is not recommended and not possible. Even you have stop propagation. Stop propagation means when user submits this form, child form, what it will do, it will try to submit the parent form also. Then we can use stop propagation. By using stop propagation, we can prevent. But technically, having a form inside form is not possible. But this requirement comes. Then how we have to manage that requirement? Why will this requirement will come? Why this requirement will come? Because it is nothing but why you need this requirement. Actually, you open like this. This is your account details. So edit your account details. This is a form actually. That means your account details, it is a form. It opens in a form. In this form, categories are there. Categories are like, so these are personal details. Personal details. So these are like security details. Now what happens? Here we have a save button. Here we have a save button. Now what is the point is, this save button will save only this data. And this save button will save only this data. And we have a final save button. Confirmation that all the details are saved. That is a requirement. That means now what should happen when they click save? This entire form should not submit. Only this portion should submit. How you will handle this? If entire form should not be submitted, only a partial part of form should be submitted. How you achieve this? By implementing AJAX. That's what you learned AJAX for. What is the meaning of AJAX? Purpose of AJAX? Purpose of AJAX. Partial postbacks. That is the primary aim. The primary aim of AJAX is to achieve a concept called partial postback. Right? You try to tell a story about AJAX, what you learned, this will do, that will do. That's all inexperienced people's definition. Experienced people definition about AJAX is partial postback. One term answer, one word answer, partial postback. Because partial postback, that is the aim of AJAX. So that entire page is not posted. Only a portion of the page is posted. Entire page is not loaded. only a portion of page is loaded. So the new details can come on to page without submitting the complete page, without reloading the complete page. That is what actually you can achieve through a concept called AJAX, right? That is the important point. Actually, this requirement comes, then how our developers manage this? We don't prefer writing a form inside form. That's not a great idea. Then what we do is we create nested components. That means we design this as one component. We design this as another component. We will bring these two into the main component. You saw Netflix design. We have a Netflix index in that header, in that main, in that register, right? So that means if you have seen Netflix index, it is having header component. In that there is a sign in button, and it have a main component. In that there is a register button. That means the point is through separate components you can design, you can bring those components. What is advantage? Only this component can be submitted without disturbing others. That means you don't need to write any AJAX. By default it uses AJAX. That means in various situations, so React and Angular and other technologies, they are inbuilt with AJAX. Single page application means they have inbuilt AJAX. Many times without knowing all this, people ask like, sir, will you teach AJAX in React? They think that AJAX means accessing data from API. That's only what they know. That's not AJAX. AJAX has a lot of other features. AJAX is not about connecting with API. People think that connecting with API, getting data from API, that is what AJAX. No. For every interaction, there is AJAX. If any interaction is happening without loading the complete page, then that is through the medium of AJAX. And React, Angular like technologies inbuilt use AJAX. Several concepts you don't need to explicitly write AJAX. They internally use it. You will see such things one by one. So initially, can we define a form within another form? It's not possible. Through, so always use multi-level components instead of forms. Instead of forms. That is important. If you want such hierarchy, you have to do that. Now, another important question here is, another requirement here is, another concept here is, can a form have multiple submit buttons? Can a form have multiple submit buttons? Can we have multiple submit buttons? Form is submitted by using a submit button. Can we have multiple submit buttons? So yes, we can have. Now the question is, then what is necessity of multiple submit buttons? Because all will submit the same form. All are going to submit the same form. then why you need multiple submit buttons? It is allowing multiple submit buttons means there might be some use. That means, for example, in this form, this is submit, another button is register, and you see here both buttons are submit buttons only because you haven't given type. Actually, type is what? Submit. Here also type is what? Submit. That is the type. You know, HTML have three types: submit type, reset type, another one is button. Submit, reset are generic, button is non-generic. Can we have multiple submit buttons? You see, it is not showing an error means we can have. And see, I type something and click on submit. It is showing form submitted. I click on register. It is also form submitted. If both are doing same work, why you have two? If you think it is not necessary, then why they have given the two work? Hmm? What you can do? Any idea? Hmm? Multi, this is not multi-level form, single form only. It's not a multi-level form. It's a single form only now. It's a single form only. Right? What is the use? What is the use of having this? The use of having this is nothing but a form can handle different functionalities. On submit click, you can perform one functionality. On register click, you can do another functionality. Actually, it is not just like submit and register. Suppose you have an insert, you have a delete. Two buttons are there. Both are submit buttons only. But on insert, it will submit this to insert operation. On delete, it will submit to the delete operation. Now the question here is, okay, your idea is great, but how the form knows which button you clicked? Okay, we are satisfied with your answer. Like you can have multiple submit buttons. Why we should have multiple submit buttons? To handle multiple operations. Now how form knows which one you clicked? Because to handle different operation, it should know whether you clicked insert or whether you clicked delete. How it knows? That means the point here is, yes, you can have multiple submit buttons. Now here, why you need multiple submit buttons? To handle various actions using single form. To handle various actions using single form. With one form, you can handle various actions. Now the question is, how form knows which submit button is clicked? How form knows which submit button is clicked? How you know which submit button is clicked? Can you tell? So that means now you have two submit buttons. Which submit button is clicked? Suppose I am removing prevent default. So this form have a name submit. This form also have a name submit. This have a value called insert. This have a value called delete. Like this we mentioned. Now what happens here is, you see, when we perform this, I am accessing, I am entering some name. I click on delete and you see submit button name is delete. And I entered some name and click on insert. The submit button name is insert. Now you can manage. You can manage the. You can collect the submit value. We can collect the submit value. And after collecting the submit value, if it is insert, one action. If it is delete, another action. That's how we can manage the functionalities. That means we write a condition. If submit value is insert, then do this work. But how do you access this? Suppose I am preventing default. I am preventing default. That means here what we do, e dot prevent what? Default. If prevent default is done, that means the values are not submitted. You entered some name, insert, delete, values are not submitted. If values are not submitted, how to collect the value? We will do one thing, console.log. We will put E. We will see what this E returns, because this E related to form na, is related to form. It is not related to button. It is related to the form. And observe now here. So let's go to the console. In the console now, when I entered the details, this is the console. I entered some detail and click on delete. You see synthetic event comes. In the synthetic event, you see here submit event is triggered. Okay, but the question is which submit one? You see there is a target. Let's expand this target. So it is having various properties, and target is nothing but form. Target is form. In that form, how many elements are there? Text box and two buttons are there. Let's expand this. You see input and button, two buttons are there. And for every button, so you have a name and button have a value. Button have a name and value. That means that button is having, that button is an object. That button object is having some name and values. You see, it is having some name and values. This is only design actually. It is having the name and value. One is insert. So another one is delete. So that is insert. Another one is delete. This is first button related details. Huh? You have second button related details, delete. Now how you access the button values? how you access the button values. You are watching this, you can tell now hierarchy. That means what you do. So roughly suppose E dot target, and E dot target is a form. Suppose if I access E dot target, see what it is going to do now. I will enter some name and click on delete. Only form will come. Inside the form, you see all these elements are coming. Now, how do we collect these elements? How we collect the elements? That means we need to access the button elements. How do we access the button elements? Because the target is returning a form. Form is an array. Form is an array. That means it is returning form. Suppose if I use this form and see what it is returning now, and I entered something and submit, it is not there. It is returning an array. It is returning an array, suppose 0, and see what it is returning now. So you entered some name, it is returning text box. And at 1, what it is present? Insert button. At 2, what it is present? Delete button. Is there any way to collect them? You can use array destructuring technique. You learned array techniques. Now can you tell me how to collect only button elements? How to collect only button elements from this array? From this array, how to collect only button elements? Because there may be 10-20 elements. I want only button. How do we access? This is how experience level interview happens. Entire interview of 1 and 2 hours can happen only on form concept. Right? You can't handle if you haven't learned all the process perfectly. That is what experienced people, we think they have knowledge on. Interviewer thinks that experienced person means he knows everything this much in depth about the concept. Fresher, we don't even imagine or expect that they have this knowledge. For a fresher, we don't even expect that they have all this knowledge. We don't want also. Because a fresher just need to know the concept, that's it. But if anybody says, I have 5 years experience, 10 years experience, then show your experience now. Right? That means then tell me how we resolve this issue. Because this is a genuine requirement. So this is how the interview questions will be for experienced people. A concept detail architecture is asked. You should get prepared for that. Right? So now tell me how we know that it is button type. Is there any possibility to know that? How do you know the type? So suppose we are using an attribute type of, operator. What is type of operator? Type of operator is used to return the type. And it is going to return, it is an object. That means we can use these operators. We can know the type. Of course, if you are aware of the name, that means you see here, we are reading every name. So for, I'm just writing an option where item of collection. Collection is what? E dot target. That is the collection. Now in this collection, so what we are doing, if we are accessing item dot name is equal to what the name you are expecting submit. That means suppose I am giving console.log, console.log, then we will return an item. What this is going to do, suppose this not yet complete, so I'm just giving a reference. You see submit buttons will come. That means what you are doing, you are reading the submit buttons. Only submit buttons, because submit buttons have a name called submit. Now if it is submit, you have to get its value. We have to get the value of those submit buttons. That means what is the value of those submit buttons? You entered some name and you see insert delete. Now you know the logic here. How do we handle? Right? That means what we have to do. So if item dot value, item dot value is what? Insert. Insert. If item dot value is insert, then what we have to do? So we put a console log, suppose record inserted. I'm just giving a lengthy process and a break. Otherwise, so item, so console.log, so we put a message like record deleted. You can use a switch if there are multiple conditions. You can use all your logics. But here the point is, now see, I clicked on name insert, then it says record insert. So I click on this delete, so it is showing record inserted only. Suppose I am adding this one, so delete record inserted only. Because you know the rules of loops, na? You know the rules of loops, conditions, right? Now 98% logic I mentioned. This 1% you finish. You know how to break, where to break, how to return the loops. It is nothing but the loop is rewinding again. You have to just break at correct positions. I hope you can do that now, right? So you try that. Only one extra break you have to define, and that you decide where to define. Okay, you know the loops, right? Now the point is how form knows which submit button is clicked. So by accessing the form elements reference, by accessing form elements reference using target attribute, you can do that. So it is possible to have multiple submit buttons. It is possible to have multiple submit buttons. So example is this, you need to resolve this loop. Am I right? Because it is an array, you can also use a map. By using map, you can read every item. You can even find the items which are having, the value, the name called submit. Because it's an array. You know how to manage arrays? This is one point actually. Suppose here what we do is, so where submit buttons. How to access submit buttons? E dot target dot filter, because target is an array. Filter what? Filter the button and return whose button dot name is matching with what? Submit. That means now submit buttons will come. It's an array. The submit buttons will come. So that means what we have to do, or remember, we are accessing the button. So the value, so button dot value, suppose button name only submit, right? Now we say console dot log, and what it is, submit buttons. Now what this have to do is, it should return the submit buttons. Some problem. Filter is not a function on this target, because actually this target is not directly returning only array, it is having some more properties. Okay, if it is returning array, then you can use the filter. It is not returning only array. Actually, target is having lot of details, because you see target is having lot of details. It's having a form. It is also having some data list with some terms. It is having so many others. Then it is difficult to do that. You do this for operation and you can access that by using that you can. So I hope you can manage this logic. Already I given the logic. Only the point is you need to put a proper break, because after insert it should stop. After delete it should stop. You can try that, right? But this is the solution for that particular question. So while working with form events, lot of concepts are asked. Another question is here. So another question number 6. Yeah, another question is how to access data from all elements in form on submit. How to access data from all elements in form on submit. This is a task for you. You try. That means in the form there are 10 elements. How to access all their values? With one click. Earlier we done that with on change. On change of name, on change of drop down, on change of checkbox. We created two-way binding. But now my concept is you have to access all the element values with one submit click. Earlier what we have done, we used on change, but you don't need that now. Whatever values entered, we can collect them all together on a submit, and we can post that to any location. You can do that. Can you try? Try various techniques. That means what you have to do, collect all the data coming from various elements inside a form. With just one submit click, we have to collect. If you can do, then we can submit to server and perform the actions. So this is all about the events. This is your task, you try. Otherwise in next session I will show you, right? So these are all the basic events that you need to understand. I hope you are clear. Now by using these events, and these are all interview related questions, how they ask related to this concept. Now using these events, now we will design some application. Means we will create a sample application with some sample data. By using these events, we will try to implement them, right? That we'll see in next session. Tomorrow we will do that. So tomorrow we are going to build one small app by using these events and other concepts. I will give you some example of different concepts. Okay. Then we can perfect with the events concept and we can move forward with other options, right? Tomorrow we'll continue.